Welcome to another edition of Games for Cheap Bastards. This is Coozinator, and I've got another fantastic game heading your way. So please stay seated, have your trays in the upright position, and let's begin. Today's Game for Cheap Bastards is Path of Exile, brought to you by Grinding Gear Games. The game is currently in its open beta, which started January 23rd, 2013. Path of Exile is an action RPG, kind of similar to Diablo or Torchlight. It provides 6 classes to choose from. Out of all the classes, there's not really a set skill tree. The way you gain skills is actually through gems you collect through the game. So there's different melee, different range skills, different magic skills that you actually collect in gems and you can level up. There are such things as passive skills, which is kind of like a skill tree, but it's in a sense where it's kind of like Final Fantasy X, where it's the sphere grid, where you start in one spot based on your class, and you can travel all around the skill tree, going into different areas, different classes, and get the different passive skill nodes. Another benefit of Path of Exile is something called leagues. Now, the game has default league, which is kind of your, I guess, softcore league, and then hardcore league, which is like Diablo. If you die, you're dead. Now, instead of Diablo, your character is actually put into the default league, so you don't completely lose your character, but you're no longer in hardcore. The other benefit about Path of Exile is that it has different kind of contests called races. Races are where everyone starts at a certain time and they try to level up, and the winner is the one with the highest level. It's all hardcore, so if you die, you start at the beginning. So it's definitely challenging, especially with all the different enemies you can fight, plus all the maps are completely random every time you play. The plot of Path of Exile is pretty straightforward. Believe it or not, you're an actual exile on the continent of Rayclass, which is kind of a continent just for criminals and, exiles. So you find yourself shipwrecked or landed or thrown upon this continent, and you just go to the first town, do some quests for some people, and continue on, and next thing you know, you're in the middle of a huge war, kind of. Anyway, enough talk about the game. Why don't I show you a little bit of what's going on and kind of show you at least the first act or the first half of the first act. So let's go check it out. Welcome everybody to Path of Exiles. This is the action RPG by Grinding Gear Games. I went ahead and skipped the beginning of the game, as in like the login screen, and we're here at create a class. Now I mentioned before that there's 6 classes. Each class, there's basically 2 classes per stat, basically, in the sense that there's strength, dexterity, and intelligence. So there's basically 2 strength characters, 2 agility, or I'm sorry, dexterity characters, and 2 intelligence characters. Now, the cool thing about the game is that while you're trying to pick a character in the type of play you want to do, like you want to choose a magic person, you choose intelligence, every character can be built into every different aspect. So if you wanted to take, for example, the magic person and make them a melee person, you could. Might be a little difficult, but it's possible, and that's half the fun of the game. So let's go through the characters real quick. We'll start with the Templar. The Templar is one of the strength people, if you can't tell, because he's so manly. Now the Templar could also be built, dexterity-wise, could be magic-based, either way. Then you could go into Shadow. Shadow's more of a dexterity magic person, so he can go ranged via dexterity, or he can go magic. Marauder is kind of your pure strength person, if you can't tell. Ranger is kind of your pure dexterity person, though she can easily go magic and strength also. Duelist is kind of a combination of strength and intelligence, or I'm sorry, strength and dexterity. He's really the type of guy that you'll want to dual wield with. And then obviously the Witch, she is intelligence, if you can't tell, because she's floating. So she's your main magic person, and I think I'm actually going to start with her, mostly because magic's pretty cool looking, and I want you to see how cool the game looks. So we're going to name her Coozinator Witch, just because I haven't named that person. We're going to start in the default league. There's actually a bunch of different leagues. There's default, there's the hardcore league, which means if you get killed in hardcore, you go to the default league. Then there's the 1 month party, so it's a 1 month race with partying allowed. And then this is another race, the 135-minute solo race. We're just going to do default, so that way I can show you kind of the intro to the game. So let's hit OK. And get along your way. Lightning damage can shock you, increasing damage taken. This can stack up to 3 times. So as I mentioned before, the plot of the game is simply you've done something very bad, and now you're being exiled to Ray class, which is this continent. So you start out, and they just basically throw you on the beach. Wonderful. So, before we begin, let me show you a little bit of the basic controls. On the left, you have your life orb. On the right, you have your mana orb. Pretty self-explanatory. You have your action keys, which are Q, W, E, R, T. Then left click, middle click, right click. Right now, to the left click is the default attack, you know, just a punch or something like that. And let's see if I can show you how to punch. I'm struggling to get up. So I can go over here and I can try to punch. Now I don't have anything to punch right now, but if you hold down shift, wah, wah, take that, man, yeah. So pretty self-explanatory. Let me get into the inventory real quick. Now, inventory is broken up most like the other games, Diablo and Torchlight, in the sense that you have a helmet spot, an armor spot, greaves or gloves, shoes, a belt, and then I think these are 2 rings, an amulet, and then your weapon or shield. The cool thing about this game is in other games you have to collect potions, and it's like I only have 5 potions left. This game, your potions are constantly refilling. So you only have 1 potion, or each slot takes 1 potion, and it'll never run out in the sense that as long as you keep killing monsters. The potions refill every time you kill a monster, or refill a little bit. So as long as you keep killing, you have potions. If you don't kill anything, then you run out of potions. There's life flasks, and the cool thing is you can get bigger flasks. Flasks can have special attributes to them. And then you have a mana flask, and then there's something called the Quicksilver flask, which I might be able to show you later. So if you hold Alt, you'll see whatever items or characters are nearby. It looks like there's a Driftwood wand. So let me pick up the wand and explain how the game works. Now, even though it doesn't matter what character you are, Witch, Templar, Marauder, Shadow, doesn't matter. You can equip any ability, any skill gem you want. Abilities don't come via leveling up, they come via gems that you find throughout the game. So, gems, they come in all 3 categories, the strength, intelligence, dexterity, and they're color-coded. Melee, or strength is red, dexterity is green, intelligence is blue. How about that? So usually your starting weapon is has all 3, that way if you need to equip one, you have it. So with the wand is kind of a ranged weapon. I shoot something, pew, 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 and it's pretty fantastic. It has abilities, you know, increased spell damage, so it's mostly for intelligence people. That's great. So let's go ahead and obviously I've got a quest here. Let's talk to the dying exile. We're all that made it. They dumped 24 of us exiles off the ship. Luckier than this poor bastard beside me at any rate. Splinter sticking out of me, missed all the important bits. I saw smoke at the ruins of the beach. Go get some help. You might just what? Holy cow, zombie. Alright, hungry corpse. Bam, dead. Now, this one dropped a fireball. Usually, whatever character you pick, it drops a skill gem for that type of class. So, for Witch and Templar, no, I'm sorry, for Witch and Shadow, it'll drop typically a magic, an intelligence gem. The others will drop strength and then dexterity. So this one dropped a fireball. Pretty neat. The fireball I can equip to a weapon. You can detach them, so it's nothing permanent. You don't have to go to anyone to remove the abilities. It automatically assigns it a key, I guess, so I can right click and cast a cool little fireball thing. The cool thing about gems is that they level up. So the more experience you get, the higher level the ability will become. Now, you don't necessarily want to just immediately level up abilities, simply because as they become stronger, obviously they might cost more mana, and that means you might not have as much mana as you originally thought, and you can only cast 2 fireballs as opposed to like 10. Who knows? So let's go ahead and go around the beach a little bit. Let me fight some monsters, and let me try to gain a level so that way I can show you how the awesome sphere grid passive skill tree looks. And that's probably the skill tree is the meat to the potatoes of this game. It's so much fun. Alright, so let me kill some zombies. I'm using left click and using the wand to kill them. Using some fireballs. Oh, there's some barrels there. It plays just like most action RPGs. I can sit here and just keep hitting them over and over. Here's a helmet. Automatically puts it on because I don't have a helmet. Here's these little spitter things. Now, if you notice, these monsters have resistances. Resistances play a huge part in this game, mostly later on in the game when you get to the higher difficulties, because eventually you're going to max out or really hit the plateau of how much health you can have, especially if you're a character like a witch or who's playing a weaker magic character, more of a glass cannon. So that's where you build up resistances, otherwise that health is for naught, basically. So let's see if I can kill some more of these monsters. Fireball him to death. Hey, you drowned. Sorry, you're dead now. Hey, you drowned too. Goodbye. Alright, so I'm gonna try to, and this should be pretty easy at the beginning. It's an intro to the game. You fight just random things. You usually get a good starting equipment, or enough to be a starting equipment. So I've got a plate armor, a helmet, a wand, and then I got some shield I just picked up. It's enough to get you pretty much every slot except for jewelry at the beginning. So I found. Alright, there we go. I leveled up. So let's go out of danger. And let me show you the passive skill tree. This is how you really customize your character, is the passive skills. So let's take a look. So, you start out where your character starts out. Each character, or each class, starts out in a different position on this massive tree. See this massive tree? Now, here's all 6 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, wait, 6, and then I think there's a 7 in the middle. I think that's how that works. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, so basically, the way it works is you start out where the character starts, and you go along the tree hitting all the nodes whenever you get points. You get a point every time you level up. You get points on quests sometimes to give you points, and you could branch out and do whatever you want. Usually the beginning of the tree tailors to what your character is quote-unquote default supposed to be. So a witch is supposed to be magic, so she starts out with either choosing mana regeneration or spell damage. But if I really wanted to go like a more melee route, I can go to the left and I start picking up strength, some dexterity, still more intelligence, but you know, I can go down and start picking up different abilities. Now, let's get a little closer and let's take a look at some of these abilities. So, these are the smaller nodes. They probably have proper names. I don't know what they are. I call them small nodes. They give you little bonuses, 10% increased spell damage, 40% increased mana regeneration, strength, 6% increased fire damage. Then you go on to these kind of larger nodes. These give you more, not specific abilities, but they kind of are like an extra bonus if you make it to one of them. So if you make it to this one, you have to do 2 nodes, and then you get plus 32 intelligence, which is huge. Then you could do Lightning Walker, 12% increased lightning damage, or Frost Walker, or Fire Walker. It completely depends on how you want to build your character, which is great. It gives you so much customization. Now, besides these kind of larger nodes, there's even bigger ones, and these, I guess I call them super nodes. They are really how you define your build. It's like, okay, I'm going to go Pain Attunement, which 30% more spell damage when on low life. Or I want to go Chaos inoculation. Maximum life becomes 1, immune to chaos damage. And so half the fun is trying to figure out a build. There are builds out there on different websites that show you, hey, you can do it this way, hey, you can do it that way. But, you know, half the fun is figuring it out on your own. One cool ability I'll go ahead and show you, which is one of my favorites, is this ability down here called Blood Magic. It removes all your mana, and so all you have is you're spending life instead of mana for skills. So it's great for a character who has a lot of, you gain life per hit. So if you have a bow character and you gain a life per hit, and you're hitting them with like a split arrow attack, you can essentially spam your ability while gaining health. Runs risks, but that's the fun. I mean, the game is free, so you don't have to worry about... there's not really that big of a limit on character slots, so if you screw up a character, just restart the game. It's not like you're limited to 3 characters. Speaking of free game, the way the game works is how they make money, how Grinding Gears makes money, is through their shop. Now, I can't show you the shop because it goes through a website, but the way it works is it's not a pay-to-win, it's just more vanity stuff. So what you can buy is you can buy more slots for your inventory, not so much this inventory, but like your stash back in town. Or you can buy different effects to make, you know, maybe my fireball looks cooler, maybe it's blue instead, or green. You could buy more vanity and cosmetics, something that doesn't really add a lot of added bonus. It doesn't make you significantly better than someone who doesn't pay. But, you know, it's just a convenience, something along those lines. Alright, so let's continue on through the game. Let me get to the first town and beat this kind of pre-act, if you will, the intro. Now, the intro does have a boss at the end. He's easy because, you know, it's supposed to introduce you to the game. So let me go ahead and kill some of these monsters, and I'll try to talk a little bit more about my experience with the game. Now, I've played this game. I've spent probably about 30-40 hours in the game. I've gotten to Act 3. I haven't completely beaten Act 3. But the cool thing is it's the type of game where you can really devote time to it and you're not limited by time. Whereas some games we've played before, and I've shown on Games for Cheap Bastards, you're limited by how much time they allow you. So it's like, oh, you've already used everything for today, come back tomorrow. This game, no such thing. It's play as much as you want. If you play, oh, there's the boss. If you want to play for 20 hours a day, which would be ridiculous, you can. It's perfectly fine. You don't have any penalties, anything like that. So let's kill this boss, Hillock. He has additional life. He's going to try to hit me. He's slow. He's weak. That's on purpose. It's supposed to be fairly easy since it's the first act and the first difficulty. This game does have multiple difficulty levels. I think it's like Cruel and Merciless, which is kind of like Hell and Nightmare mode and stuff like that. So I'm low on mana. I can hit 5, and oh, he just pulled a sword out of his chest. That's sexy. Always love it when men pull swords out of their chests. So I'll just keep hitting him with my weapon, hitting him with my fireball. That's pretty much all I can do. Oh, and I've already gained another level. How about that? Or wait. No, I just never used that ability. Alright, so I could just take the damage. So now, 2 things have happened. First off, I gained enough experience to where my fireball is leveled up, so I could take it to level 2. You always got to be careful about the mana costs and whether or not you can afford the mana costs. Also, sometimes they have level requirements. And then I should have gotten some items. I got a bunch of, looks like uncommon items. So they're not, they go similar to Diablo. It goes blue, yellow, and then I think orange or something along those lines. So these are kind of uncommon. They aren't fantastic. I've got a unidentified life flask, so I can use one of my Scroll of Wisdoms. And this gives me more life than normal. So 30 life over 2.6 seconds. It gives me 60 life over 6 seconds. So slightly better. It recovers faster. You know, it's not bad. I'll use it. Let's see. A rusted sword, a bow, and pretty much any character can equip anything. So if I wanted to, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to use magic anymore. Pretty sure I could just equip a bow, and now I can use a bow. Now I don't have the slot anymore for my fireball, which is something you have to keep in mind every time you play, is when you pull off an item, make sure you don't forget that gem and then start fighting, because otherwise you're kind of screwed when you realize, oh no, I don't have fireball anymore. Alright, so let's wrap this up by going into town, checking out the first quest hub. This is where you'll really start interacting with other characters. You don't see any other people in the game in the intro, but other people playing you can see. You can only see them in the actual playing world is if you join a party, and they'll follow you into the world, if that makes sense. So you can see all these different people. Hey there, Saber Wolf and Croc-Eyed Jenkins. Anyway, this is the main hub. There's people who give you items and quests. There is a stash. It's kind of like Diablo 2 or Diablo 3. Stash is shared for all the characters in the league, so this is all the default. Now, this is what a neat thing about the game is. The game actually doesn't have currency, if that makes any sense. There's no gold, which makes sense plot-wise because you're on an island with a bunch of criminals. Where are you going to get gold? You gonna mine it? No, I don't think so. So the way it works is currency is done with items in the game. Now there's a lot of different items, like a chromatic orb reforges the color of sockets on any item. Let's see, Orb of Alteration reforges a magic item with new random properties. Orb of Augmentation enchants a magic item with a new random property. Chaos Orb reforges a rare item with a new random property. So it goes on and on. There's a tiered list people have made up and kind of said, okay, I'll trade you 3 Chaos Orbs for this item, and you trade stuff like that. It's kind of neat. It's kind of difficult to understand, but you'll pick it up eventually. I have some other different abilities I'll show you. I have Cleave, which it swings their item in a arc. It's more of a, you see it's red, so it's a strength type ability. Fire Trap, Ice Shot, Bear Trap, Split Arrow, and then Raise Zombie. You can raise zombies. That is really neat. So that's pretty much Path of Exile. Now, if I were to rate this, which I should, because that's what Games for Cheap Bastards is, I would absolutely rate this game probably about a 9.5 out of 10. The only reason I don't give it a full 10 is because the graphics aren't amazing, which they don't have to be. It's kind of reminiscent of Diablo 2. But, you know, they're not spectacular, but it's a free game, so I'm not going to give them a lot of hardship for it. And also, there are some issues with desyncing, and that's where you might be clicking, but the server doesn't know you're clicking, so it might get out of time just a second, but that second can add up. If you're playing in a hardcore league and you're surrounded by monsters, you could be dead in that second. So it's an issue that Grinding Gears is working on. But it's still a prevalent issue at the time of this review. So, I give the game a 9.5, which is probably the highest I've given a game so far for Games for Cheap Bastards, and the reason being is because this game is amazing. It doesn't have any kind of restrictions to where you can't, you can't do something because you don't have the time or you don't have the money to spend on the game. This could be your sole game and you spend 60 hours a week on it. Which would be crazy, but still. It could be your main game. It could be your game to hold you over till the next big blockbuster. But so far from what I hear, Grinding Gears is going to officially release the game at the end of this year. I think there's another act they're going to do. There are currently 3 acts. They're going to do the 4th one, I believe. They are going to keep the game going for at least 5 to 10 years and come out with expansions. So if you haven't yet, definitely check out Path of Exile. I highly, highly recommend it. So that's going to do it for this episode of Games for Cheap Bastards. Thank you guys for watching, and this is Coozinator, and I'll catch you next time with the next Game for Cheap Bastard.